Okay, so the council has a motion submitted to the Labour group, proposed by Councillor Palace and seconded by Councillor Martins. We also received joint amendments to be received from the Green Group and Hackney Independent Socialist Group, which have not been accepted by the proposers.
Yeah, I'd like to start by acknowledging that the Renters' Rights Act is a huge leap forward in renters' rights, and I completely support the Renters' Rights Act, but it doesn't properly address affordability, which is why you've identified this in this motion that you're bringing forward. So I think we're on the same page, and I do think this is a great motion, and I do plan to support it. It's just our amendments make it stronger. So from the conversations I've had in City Hall, I do know that the Mayor of London is supportive of rent controls, but recently the government made a statement to say they hadn't received any formal response from mayors asking for rent control powers. So I've still got a bit of a gap about whether he's actually doing that proper campaigning up to government. And that's what one of our recommendations was. Can you put more pressure on the Mayor of London to do that advocacy for Hackney's renters? We also put in our amendment about recognising the work of unions, because it's really important that that coalition of unions and campaigners and organisations are recognised. We also said about having a rent commission, because it's widely accepted that there's not an agreed model of rent controls out there for London yet. We haven't had a proper conversation about the economic benefits and downfalls of all the different models and looked at the mitigating factors. So we're proposing a rent commission to do that. I held one in London last year. We had renters, like disabled renters, older renters, younger renters, renters' rights groups, all different community groups coming together to look at what those pros and cons would be of the models. So that's what we need. So while we're waiting for the powers, we can get that model in place. So as soon as we get the powers, we're ready to go. So that's why we're calling for a rent commission. So we're doing as much as we can to be ready for those rent control powers. We also think that we should be doing other things to mitigate the cost of living crisis and where we're losing our council homes. Things like ending the right to buy. We know that we've lost 10,000 council homes and the council's buying them back at 4 times the amount. So we've asked to end right to buy. And also just to state, the Green Party does support abolishing landlords, and we set out a clear 5-step programme, and one of those programmes is rent controls. So we're already on our way. Thank you.
To be honest, we introduced some of the amended changes to this motion to spare Labour's blushes, because as it stands, it's full of self-congratulatory backslapping, which is frankly embarrassing, given Labour's track record on looking after private renters. Both locally and nationally, Labour really has little to brag about. Yes, the Renters' Rights Bill is welcome, but it goes nowhere near far enough. There are still loopholes around sales for landlords seeking no-fault evictions. But more to the point, that legislation was the moment to introduce rent caps. It shows how much the Labour government doesn't listen to councils and its mayors, that despite all the lobbying, the issue of caps was ignored. Locally, this administration was elected in 2022 on the promise of introducing licenses for private sector landlords to improve housing conditions. It was only this week, 3.5 years later, that Hackney Cabinet finally approved the policy to implement those changes. The chances of any serious improvement to the private rented sector in Hackney before the local elections next May are slim indeed. Similarly, the motion talks of Hackney introducing one of the most ambitious social housing delivery programmes, when we know that it's produced no new affordable homes in this financial year to date, and is way behind on its promise of 1,000 new council homes by 2026. In August this year, the average price of rented accommodation in Hackney was £2,567. So yes, we desperately need rent caps, but without the Labour grandstanding. We also need an end to right to buy. We need the Mayor of London to drop his crazy idea of reducing the affordable target from 35% to 20% on new developments. And we need Sadiq Khan to actually put in a request for rent control powers rather than just talk about them. Those significant additions are in our amendments, so please vote for them.
Do members wish to debate the amendments? No. Okay, can I now put the amendments to the vote? Unless any member has an objection, I intend to deal with the proposed amendments en masse. Those in favour of the amendments? Okay. Those against?